Well, we want to bring this meeting to order. We appreciate everybody showing up today, and we appreciate your attendance and look forward to possible comments from you. We want to begin this evening with an invocation, and that will be by Commissioner Mitchell. How you doing?
Our dear Father in heaven, we're grateful to be here this evening. We're thankful for the opportunity to have this city meeting. And at this time, we pray that would be with each of us, that we'll be able to accomplish what is needed and can do so in an orderly and pleasing fashion. We're grateful for Washington City. We're grateful for all those who serve and make it such a wonderful place to live. We pray that would help all of us to do our part and to serve and to continue to make it a great community. We thank thee in this we pray for and do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
We're also wanting to excuse our chair tonight, Commissioner Hanson, as he's out of town, so you're kind of stuck with me. I'm Commissioner Schill. And we'll move forward with an approval of our agenda tonight. Do I have a motion to approve?
This is Commissioner Mitchell. I make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
This is Commissioner Tupou. I second that.
I have a first and a second on our agenda approval. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any negative? Okay, I'm looking for an approval or some corrections if necessary for the minutes from April 6th commission meeting, planning commission meeting.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I make a motion we approve the minutes from the April 6th, 2022 meeting.
Commissioner Anderson, I second.
Have a first and a second on approval of minutes of April 6th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next item is number 3, looking for any declaration of absentations or conflicts of tonight's meeting from anybody on the commission. Okay, perfect. We'll dive in. Our first item is a public hearing for consideration and recommendation to the City Council for the Finley Farms Townhomes, Phase 1 and 2, preliminary plat located approximately 4300 South Washington Fields Road. Applicant is MST 150 LLC. This was tabled from March 16th, and so we'll turn some time over to Eldon Gibbs for presentation.
Thank you, Commissioners. The applicant is requesting approval of a preliminary plat for the Finley Farms Townhome Phase 1 and 2. This particular subdivision is proposing 129 units on an area covering 17.84 acres. The zoning designation at this location was recently rezoned to planned unit development. In the motion for approval, City Council added 3 conditions, such as adding 9 visitor parking stalls, completion of the amenities to take place at 25%, and building out a solid block wall along Weatherby Way. The applicant has incorporated these conditions into the preliminary plat. The surrounding zoning is agricultural 20 to the north, open space to the east and south, and residential 8,000 square foot to the west. This proposal is in the hillside overlay zone, and we did meet on site with the hillside and ruled out any concerns in that regard. Staff does have concerns with the timing of the full build out of Weatherby Way, connecting Medallion Drive to Washington Fields. And staff has added condition number 15 to address this concern. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning. The request meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances as it relates to this location. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of the preliminary plat as outlined. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat for the Finley Farms Townhomes Phases 1 and 2 subdivision to the City Council based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions as seen in your report. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
This is Shill. I looked at this and I could never find Medallion Way. Where's Medallion Way on there?
It's to,
Okay.
it's a west to east connector road, lying in the Fields Road.
Was this this is Tupo. Was this the project that was put on hold to determine what was going to happen with the greenhouses?
This phase wasn't, phase 3 was.
Okay.
So you're partially correct, which is why we added that condition onto this report, which is this, it mirrors the condition that City Council put on their phase 3.
So there's Medallion. You see the baseball field for Crimson High School, which is Crimson Cliffs Way.
Okay.
Medallion's under construction, more or less, is the best way to say that, with all these houses going. So it's down here because this Weatherby Way will be coming all the way through St. George, underneath Crimson High School and Middle School. And then you can see it goes through 1 or 2 different subdivisions. And then the part we're talking about is right here in this area that's not got any ghost lines. That's the townhome project right there where my arrow is. You can see it all floated around. So that's what we're just saying, is that a lot of this but we need to get Weatherby all the way through, and it's a joint thing. It used to be one particular developer way back when this started in the general plan change, and now it's been broken up into different people buying parcels or phases of different subdivisions, and so we're just getting them all together to make sure the
Can
road
you
gets through.
scroll out and make it show Washington? Where's Washington Field's over here, correct?
Well, no, up here where my arrow is,
Oh, yeah.
there's the nursery.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
And so, again, right where my arrow is where this townhome project is.
Yep.
So, you can see where this white line is. Once this gets preliminary plat approved by the City Council, then our GIS will tie all this through together until they come in for final plats and kind of show you what's been preliminary plat approved. So, Sorry, Alvin, I didn't mean to-
Could find it.
So, question. Your proposed condition 15 about Weatherby Way being built out, is that up here or is that down lower where Drew was showing us that wasn't finished
It'll
out?
in essence connect to the end of that white line over to Washington Fields Road.
It's just this top portion up here.
Correct. Yep.
yeah, based from that white line all the way to the Fields Road.
And the phase 3 applicant, they're pretty confident that the roadway is going to be built very soon. I think Adam's heard the same thing, that it's on the list to do.
Mine were. Yeah. That's why I couldn't find anything. Any other comments, or can we open this up for public comments, as this is a public hearing? So let's open this up to public comments. Is there anybody in chambers that would like to make any comments or questions or answers to this? There was nothing online for this particular item. I see no, well, do you want to make a comment? Yeah, come on up to the microphone, state your name. Talk clear and slow, and we'll give you 3 minutes.
My name's Dean Horst and I live at 775 East Mojave Drive. When are we gonna stop? You know, we've only got so much water. We're finding out the Colorado River is in dire need. It's stressful, even though it goes to California. We still use some of it here. The Colorado River is important to us. Lake Powell is just about to the point where we're not gonna have any power, and yet we still build and build and build. And pretty soon, we're not gonna be able to water our lawns, to take a drink of water. I mean, it's serious. And yet you look around and every little piece of open property in Washington County, Washington City is being built on. So I say enough's enough. Let's put a moratorium on this stuff. Let's think about it for a year or so. You know, it's getting pretty darn serious and we need help. And the help is to stop. Yeah, they own the property. They have a right to develop. But we need to put a moratorium on construction. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. We would admonish you to talk to your city council about that. We really have no jurisdiction with that. And we'll probably just need to keep going until we hear from the Water Conservancy District on the water items. So, correct, Drew? So, is that the end of our public comments for this item? Thank you. I'm looking for a motion to close the public comments.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I make a motion we close the public hearing.
Commissioner Tupou, I second that.
I have a first and a second to close the public comments. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any other comments from,
I have a question.
okay,
How many times has this been back to us? Wasn't this approved once? I
As a
mean, it could-
PUD, you did the PUD approval on this that showed the elevations,
Okay.
the amenities. That's why it looks familiar,
Yeah,
is because it was in a PUD. Now they're subdividing it to get the lots ready to be recorded.
okay.
So
okay.
they have to do the platting. So
Okay, I'm like, why does it keep coming back? What's wrong with it? Because I didn't realize. it was
hopefully,
actually-
except other than the final plat twice, right, Adam? This should be it with 2 final plats maybe. So
Okay. Problems with it.
I have some questions for Adam, I guess.
Adam, will you please state your name?
Adam Allen, American Land Consulting.
So this is going to be a little bit for you, a little bit for, I guess, Drew, a little bit in relation to the gentleman's question a minute ago with water. I know that the city has been looking at different landscape ordinances, water ordinances, et cetera, to try and conserve water. And I know that that's affecting a lot of lawn spaces, you know, public spaces, things like that. And we've got a few lawn areas here. Have you talked to anybody like with city council? Like I don't know where they're going with that. It's just where it's like imminent that they're about to do something, and we've got some of these grassy areas. Have they looked at that, Drew? Maybe, I don't know.
well, yeah, and if
Do you
this
understand
are
what I'm
only
asking, I
grass
guess?
areas, this would probably meet indeed what our new ordinance. In fact, they're meeting tonight on that.
Right.
So they can get something passed next week. But most of this will fall in line with that water conservation ordinance that every city's adopting one. They vary a little bit from each other. They gave out a template, the Conservancy District did. And this one would probably meet that with the number of units, the size and everything, because we base everything on square foot of grass. And this would probably meet that just by looking at it, probably meet it fairly easy. So,
Okay, that was my. I mean, I just want to make sure that,
we-
whatever we talk about approving here, that it's got consideration with their,
And I think that would obviously fall under the new ordinance because they'll pass the new ordinance before they approve this. But I know that we tried to minimize the amount of actual green grass areas that we had into the, areas 1 and 3 have grass, and 5 and 4, they'll have some grass, but they're kind of the detention pond. So we're hoping they don't need much water, but the most of it'll be desert landscaping and fall within the ordinance.
I was gonna say that section 3 looks like it might, I can't remember what the ordinance is, something like under 8 feet or something like that. You can't have grass and some, just so we don't have these strips and so forth.
Yeah.
I don't know what the size of that is, but,
I think it's about 50 feet wide.
okay. So anyway,
Just something for the kids to be able to play on a little bit of grass in a couple spots. So.
Eldon, could you explain to me a little bit exactly what you're asking for or what you're proposing in that condition 15? Say exactly where and what time you want that road built and so forth. So like before platting, final plat of phase 1 or whichever phase they go with first, right? The Weatherby Way. So we're talking from the bottom down near 5 all the way up. Is that
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah, the entire build out.
The Fields Road, right? It's even beyond theirs to the Fields Road.
okay?
Yeah, and if it's not fully built out, we're asking that the developer put in a 26-foot wide asphalt road that is dedicated over to the city, that they're responsible for that, pushing all of that to the developer.
If you did just do the 26-foot though, I mean, which portions are only going to have a portion of the road done in this? Like where it seems like kind of a vague, it seems like it'd be easier just to say Weatherby Way gets built out.
That's
by the
what
end
we're
of-
hoping for. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say we do that rather
And we
than
just say
leave it
that.
open-ended. Because the 26-foot open-ended is like, where does it need to be 26 feet and where do we have to have both sides? And
Do they own the property all the way to Washington Fields Road? Or is there another developer that they're having to work this
Well,
with?
it's all part of that group collectively that had the agreements that bought it from the Gibbies and Hancocks. And I'm not sure, it's partly their owner, partly the owners to the south, partly to, so they all bought from somebody, but the initial agreement, I think that was made, and I think Bush and Gudgel would probably have that more than anybody, whatever that was, because they were the original, ones coming in on the project, but
So
everything will be taped, done to that. So, and we've
to-
done that before with other,
and
that
then-
final plats, that road, I think they already know that. They've been working all together, I think. Brandy's been part of that. You guys, right, this Weatherby Road. So there's collectively several of them in on it, so.
I think, so my understanding, because this is weird, because they sold different parcels out to different people. Usually it gets, developed, approved, all this other stuff. So I think the only part that is in question, I would assume, is the part, can you scroll up to, or scroll down to the next sheet, or 2 sheets down?
Zoom back out a little.
So
This isn't showing it though, is it?
this whole thing should be finished, but once it gets up here next to Cardiff Wells, I think that their half of just curb gutter and sidewalk will not be done. But the full build of asphalt should be done because we have to put that in, put the curb in for the NRCS line. So I think there'll just be a little bit left up at that very top portion where Cardiff Wells for when they come in and do their development.
But it'll be asphalt, right? It just won't have curb and gutter until it develops. That's usually how we do it. So on that north part of that, they'll come in when they finally come in with their commercial, because I think it's general plan for commercial. They'll put all that when they develop that out.
That's
Okay.
that's kind of what I was
Yeah,
thinking.
that makes,
They would
I just
have-
wanted
that's-
clarification.
yeah.
So
when you-
basically the full build out until you hit the Cardiff Wells piece and then it's a 26-foot build out on your side of the or the road. Gotcha. I'm fine with that.
That way they can that way you can use the road.
So what does that look like on the map? Does it connect to the existing road?
It's actually part of our master plan road system. I'll just pull it up here. So, don't follow the blue line, just know that the blue line is going to have a little more wave to it, but that's a master plan, so it has to go in for all these people, you know. And again, we can hold building permits and everything. If we get a hiccup there, we'll say, well, has to go in here, and we can work through all that. But I think it's already being worked out, so.
So where that white line ends for Weatherby, that it's gonna
Correct.
connect to there.
And then through this subdivision, its layout of the road till you get up to about right where this building is. And then it'll just, you know, kind of flow around and tie into there. So in
Okay.
fact, I understand this building's already been moved, right? This one where my arrow is fluttering around on, that's already been moved to a new location, I think over here somewhere. So that's held up one of the plats because they were showing the road going right through that, but then we come to find out that building's not there anymore. Our aerial's 2 years old. We get them done every 2 years. So that's that this building right here with my arrow on it has already been moved, to my understanding. So
Thank you.
Any other comments or looking for a motion?
This is Commissioner Anderson. I'll make a motion to recommend approval of preliminary plat for the Finley Farms Townhomes Phase 1 and Phase 2 subdivision located approximately 4300 South Washington Fields Road, with the 2 findings by staff and the 15 conditions proposed by staff and send it to City Council for consideration.
This is Commissioner Bullock, I second.
So I have a first by Commissioner Anderson, a second by Commissioner Bullock. We'll have individual voting. Mitchell?
Aye.
Topu?
Aye. Tupo.
Tupo?
Yes.
Bullock?
Aye.
Anderson?
Aye.
I'm Shield and I'm an aye. So we'll, motion passes. We will forward that on to City Council.
Tupo. Yeah.
Okay, item 4B, we'll move forward. This is a preliminary, this is all, let's see, this is a public hearing too. This is a public hearing. It's for preliminary plat approval for the Desert Ridge Estates Phase 1 subdivision located to the south of Desert Cactus Drive at approximately 1000 East. We will turn the time over to Eldon for some review.
Thank you, Commissioners. Eldon Gibb, City Planner. The applicant is requesting approval of a preliminary plat for the Desert Ridge Estates Phase 1 subdivision. This subdivision is proposing 33 lots on an area covering 6.436 acres. The zoning designation at this location is Planned Unit Development Residential. The surrounding zoning is Planned Unit Development Residential to the north, east, south, and west. This phase does not fall within the hillside overlay zone. However, future phases of this development will, and these future phases will be required to go through and obtain a recommendation from the Hillside Review Committee. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning. The request meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances as it relates to this location. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of the preliminary plat as outlined. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat for the Desert Ridge Estates Phase 1 subdivision to the City Council based on the following findings and subject to the conditions as seen in your report. And I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Questions from commissioners before we open up public hearing? Okay, we'll open up our public hearing for this item. Is there anybody in the congregation? If we're going to talk about water, we've already heard it, so we don't want to hear it again.
Dean Larson on Mojave Drive. Now the impact on the roads. You know, every day there's great big trucks going up and down our roads, clear full of dirt, clear full of rocks, and we have plenty of those, and dust. You know, they try to take our water that we drink to try to put on the dirt to keep it from getting dust all over. It's not working, as all they're doing is using more water and more impact on our roads. You know, we can't get up and down the highway now. And now you keep adding and adding and adding more construction, and the roads are terrible here. I mean, they shake your car to pieces. Maybe this is not the place to really air it, but there is a problem. We need to look at that. And, you know, is the council, maybe not here, but the city, are they looking at the impact of what's happening to our fire department, our water department, our police departments? Are we looking at that, at the impact that it's causing them? I don't think so, because I haven't seen any improvement on numbers of firefighters, numbers of police officers. The trucks that's coming down Washington Field Road, they could make a mint on following those trucks that's coming down off that curve down there at 60, 70 miles an hour. You know, it's scary to get out on the roads. This is just like going into town, into Salt Lake City or into St. George. I mean, it's horrible. You know, we're losing our farms, we're losing our property, and it's greed. It's just totally greed on developers, and we need to stop it. Thank you.
Yep, thanks for your comments. I saw a few heads nod in there, but again, we invite you to talk to your city councilman and bring that to their attention. Any other comments for this item? Please state your name, and we give you 3 whole minutes.
Hi, Sherry Olson. I live in Bella Vista for 6.5 years now. We've been going over this with some of these peoples now for 4 years. It was supposed to be small, affordable, and then all of a sudden when they changed owner, did something, then all of a sudden it's more and more, and let's go from moderate to high density, and then let's cramp them in. On our roads, we were always told, oh yeah, they'll park in their garage. Well, you know what? They don't. All their toys go in the garage, and their cars and trucks go on the road or in their driveway. I mean, it's going to be so dense down there. It's a shame if you guys allow this to go any further. Thanks.
Thank you. This is what, single housing? Any other comments? So this approval is for single-family housing, not for multifamily.
My name is Bruce Furr. I live in Bella Vista. I've been coming to these meetings now for the last 5 years, particularly involved this development. And I have 3 observations. One is, I keep asking myself, what is this thing gonna look like 5, 7, 10 years from now? The construction is okay, but it's gonna decline, I believe, into basically a slum area if it keeps going with the density we keep practicing. Prices are going up, so I don't know what's gonna happen. Secondly, we talked about the water, but what about the sewers? I've been concerned about sewer capacity in this area for some time because we get a smell up on our hill once in a while. And secondly, the traffic is just ferocious on Telegraph. You're putting more traffic on that road with every approval you make. If there's some way to thin that traffic impact down, I'd like to consider that by decreasing the density you're putting in this area. And speaking of traffic, there's no provision for any traffic lights along Telegraph in this particular area. And so I'm afraid about the ingress, egress. Just coming down here tonight, I waited quite a while before I could even get on Telegraph. Of course, it's that time of night. So please consider the impact it's going to have on our neighborhood and the impact it's going to be in that neighborhood for the next 5, 6, 10 years. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Wasn't there some lights scheduled for there? So do you want to get up and address that?
As part of our
State your name, please.
John Hickey, new development project manager for Public Works. In regards to telegraph and traffic lights, as a part of our master transportation plan, we actually have signal lights planned for 1100 East and Telegraph, and then also for Bella Vista Drive and Telegraph when traffic warrants. Obviously, we have to wait for the warrants and stuff, but they are in our master transportation plan.
Thank you. We're trying. What's that?
Pat Stanquist. I too reside up in Bella Vista, and I just need some clarification. It states here that this is phase 1, and on the plat map it shows phase 1, phase 1A, and phase 1B. So I'd just like some clarification as and differentiate between those 3 phase 1s.
Eldon, can you address phase 1, A, B?
I'm not sure the plat map she's referencing. This is what we have before us here. It's Desert Ridge Estates. Phase 1 are this blacker lines that we're looking at is phase 1. The less darker lines would be phases 2, 3, 4. I'm not sure how many phases would follow that.
But they'll incur into the hill, that they'll have to get hillside approval.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah, Brandy brought up a good point. The townhomes are phase 1A and 1B.
Of Desert Ridge Townhomes, right?
Correct, yeah, which we're not discussing tonight, but they are down off of Desert Cactus Drive. And those have already been approved.
Okay.
Well, that's different than, these are single-family lots, so that's
Yeah,
different.
completely different densities and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Any other comments from chamber for this item? No other comments. I look for a motion to close our public hearing on this item.
This is Commissioner Mitchell. I make a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Commissioner Bullock, I second.
First and second to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll proceed. Any other questions or comments for staff from planners, commissioners? Or I look for a motion.
So on the future phases, is that one that's gonna hook into Florence Drive? On the next phase, is that what, okay. So it will hook in on the next phase and then they'll have all that through there. That's all I want. I was just wanting to make sure that Florence Drive wasn't built yet.
Yeah, and we're just working through Hillside. That's why this is being taken out. They thought we might as well get this part done while we work through the Hillside stuff.
But, so the Florence Drive will be in the hillside?
It's partly, yeah, it goes through,
Okay.
ties through that phase, that last phase of Bella Vista, and all with their project too over here on this east and north
Okay.
portion.
This is Commissioner Anderson. I don't know if maybe it's a question for Brandy or the applicant is, so phase, the townhomes below 1B, is that retaining wall, it looks like you got amenities there as well. Is that retaining wall already in or does that need to be put in still? Are those amenities in?
State your name if you would, please.
James Jessup, I represent the applicant. So we've got the retaining wall on the other side of Florence Drive in, and they're moving over this week and next week to continue that retaining wall.
And the amenities, I'm assuming they're not in, right? You gotta wait till the wall
No,
gets
they're
put in.
graded. Right now, we're doing the overexes. It's a 17-foot overex on these buildings. So on 133, 134, all the way to 143, they're doing the overex on that. And as soon as the equipment get done running through the parking lot, the park equipment's already here, and they'll start working on those amenities.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? I just wanted to bring something up that I remember. Item on them multifamily or the townhomes, that was 1A and 1B that we've already approved. We went through that. We started off and we had everybody in the chamber at hands. Is that correct? And then it came back and nobody showed up and everybody was happy. It was like a miracle.
Came back and asked for more density, right?
Yeah,
It's a different, yeah,
but it's in the same area.
yeah, it's all, yeah. It's right up in here, if you see where my little eye dots are glancing around.
So I'm just confused with a couple of the comments because I think you had your day.
Well, we did recommend, or we did not recommend the increase in density. We voted against the increase in density. We didn't have any residents here.
It was a general plan amendment. They were
Right.
trying to go up to the high density and the
But
council,
we did recommend
council denied it.
deny, so anyway.
Okay.
We just say that because nobody was in the chamber to hear that,
Right.
but that was voted on last time.
That was our little secret we were talking about. So.
decided which one we were.
Anyway, not to keep anything from you, but let's proceed. I'm looking for a motion. If there's no other comments.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I make a motion to approve Phase 1 of Desert Ridge Estates and send it to City Council based on the 2 findings and 13 conditions.
Commissioner Tupou, I second that.
So I have a first by Commissioner, or a motion by Commissioner Bullock, a second by Commissioner Tupou. We'll go to individual voting. Mitchell,
Aye.
Tupou,
Aye.
Bullock,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Shield, and I'm an aye. Motion passes. This will move on to City Council. Onward and upward. Item number 4C is also a public hearing. And this in regards to a preliminary plat approval for the Temple View subdivision located at approximately 240 West, 3650 South. And the applicant is Hawkeye Construction, and we'll turn some time over to Eldon for some review.
Thanks, Commissioners. Eldon Gibbs, City Planner. The applicant is requesting approval of a preliminary plat for Temple View subdivision. They are proposing 7 lots on an area covering 3.5 acres. The zoning at this location is 12,000 square foot minimum. The surrounding zoning is R112 to the north, RA1 bonus density to the east, R115 to the south and west. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning. The request meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances as it relates to this location. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of the preliminary plat as outlined. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat for the Temple View subdivision to the City Council based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions as seen in your report. And I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Jump in.
Eldon, this is Commissioner Bullock. It says that there's no access to lots will be given off of 3650. So lot 7 over there in the corner, it'll come off of where will that one?
Yeah, that could be clarified a little better. 3650 meaning the road extension. Originally, what they have labeled as 3650 South, they had it as a name. We changed the name back to 3650 for addressing purposes. So lot 7 will be given access off of the,
Right.
yeah, that one side.
Okay, that's what I was wanting to make sure of.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
So it'll be off of the 50-foot public street, not the
Correct.
81-foot street.
Correct.
That was my only question I had.
Yeah, I'll just so you may not know, the old 3650, the 1450, the two cities are trying to come up with a new name that'll go all the way from Highway 7, all the way into Santa Clara Bay, or all the way over to the River Road, where it ties in by the old Summit, where that Popeyes is. That's going to have a whole new name, and both cities are going to agree on that name. Good luck. But that's the plan. So the 3650 will probably be the only way that we should probably go back. I don't know I don't think we'll call that 3650. I don't know. We'll have to come up with something. But yeah, the access will just come off of down here, but not off that main one. We don't let anybody on those size of roads have any driveways. So
That's what I thought, but I just where it said that, and
and it's written right there how they're coming off.
This is Commissioner Tupou. On 240 West, is there any plans, because I think do we have a trail system that runs through there? I think it ends in the
Yeah,
neighborhood.
we'll show you the trail system down here.
I'm just wondering if this project is going to connect that.
So you can see the green lines, a trail. This is 30. I'll kind of zoom in there for you. But we know that trail system's actually going to follow the new road, right, Eldon? All the way up to 1450 and tie in with St. George. So
If you pull up the plat, it's shown on there, the trail on that hashed or the darker gray area is the trail.
Oh, okay. I was looking on the wrong side. Thank
then
you.
it runs down 3050.
This too is a public hearing, so I'd like to open it up for public comments. We've heard of water, sewer, and roads. What else is there?
Dean Larson again. I think it's time, and it might not be the right place to air our dirty laundry, but we should support the residents and the taxpayers of Washington City instead of developers that don't live here. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. Any other comments from the congregation? Okay, I'd like to look for a motion to close this public hearing.
It's Commissioner Tupou. I make a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Commissioner Mitchell. I second that motion.
Have a first and second to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any other questions or comments regarding this matter from planning commissioners?
This is Commissioner Mitchell. I had a question, and it may not have anything to do, but I'm curious to know what is happening in the other triangle on where the old 3650 goes, and right there where your cursor is. And it doesn't, assuming that's owned by somebody else? Or is it just?
yeah, well, it all came under one purchase that the city had to buy right next to the chapel that's down there, that stake center. There was one, in fact, here, let me just go, this might be the best view of it anyway, because we're not showing the new road in there yet. But you can see, the new road cuts basically right through, if you follow my arrow, and goes up there. So, and then the old 30, we had to bend it back up and come into it at a 90-degree angle. So it left that. I can't remember if that piece is being turned over to this subdivision to use as an open space area if they wanted. I was told, but it's been way too long for me to remember.
So we have somebody in the congregation. Do we allow that?
Okay. I like that answer.
We like that.
Okay. Well, you're the developer, right? Yes. Okay, so that stays with us. and we'll find something to do. Turn it into a park. That's the answer to everything.
Let's just park bikes
Well,
there.
it'll probably just be a landscape triangle is what it's going to be. And, you could probably put a monument sign there. It's entering our city, out of St. George. There's different things we can do, an entrance sign. Yeah, we could put a statue of each of the planning commissioners, bronze statues. How's that?
you go.
So,
Lisa won't use water, won't impact the
we won't use
roads,
water there.
Won't have any restrooms there.
No, there might be some bushes there, but very little water.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Or I look for a motion.
This is Commissioner Tupou. I make a motion to recommend approval to City Council on the preliminary plat on Temple View subdivision located at approximately 240 West, 3650 South, with the two findings and the 12 conditions in the staff report.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I'll second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Tupou, a second by Bullock. Individual voting, Mitchell,
Aye.
Tupou,
Aye.
Bullock,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Shield, I'm an aye also. Passes unanimously, and we'll pass that on to the city council. Item 5A is also a public hearing. We're just lucky tonight, aren't we? Item 5A is C-22-03, a request for a conditional use permit for a daycare facility located at 1897 South Great Basin Drive. The applicant is Adrian Turner, and owner is Patricia Evans. And we'll turn some time over to Drew for review.
Thank you, commissioners. As stated, the applicant's requesting approval of a conditional use permit to operate a daycare facility out of her home in a residential neighborhood. The daycare will run from, as requested by the applicant, 6:30 to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday. The applicant is requesting a total number of 16 children, which is the maximum for in-home use daycares to be approved for this particular facility. The hours of 6:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. will only be allowed 1 to 8 children. Then from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. will be allowed 1 to 16 children. Just to explain why that is, state law, you can have up to one caregiver from 1 to 8 children. As soon as you break 8, 9, 10, so on, you have to have 2, up to a maximum of 16 by state law for an in-home one. So that's why from, again, those hours of 6:30 to 3 will just be 8 children, and then they'll have the second caregiver will show up and go from 3 to the remaining hours of the day. The applicant will be by herself as stated in that first session, and then the second one will arrive later. The home will be required to be inspected by the building department and fire department, and they must be given approval from both of those departments before the home can be used for a daycare. The daycare will be held in the basement of the home in designated areas shown on your attached exhibits, with an area fenced off in the backyard of the home for outdoor recreation time. A drop-off and pickup plan has been provided for you. Well, it's that this particular plan, if you follow through the subdivision coming in off of Washington Fields Road, how to enter and then exit from the home. That should help somewhat on the mitigation of traffic and concerns, and it'll all just be going basically one way. Staff has reviewed the request and is comfortable with the proposal, including the house size, yard area, daily schedules, meal menus, as long as the inspections passed our staff, our building department, our fire department, would be in favor of the proposal being approved. We have several daycares throughout the city, in lots of different subdivisions. And this is pretty much about the norm of a lot of the ones we've seen. So with that said, staff therefore would recommend that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit C-2203, allowing for the daycare facility at South Great Basin Drive based on the findings and subject to the conditions in your report. I'll be glad to answer any questions you have on this proposed conditional use permit.
So this is Commissioner Mitchell. Do I just have a question? Who does the city monitor these requirements, or is there someone in the state that monitors the numbers?
It's a
Eight,
well,
16.
it's a state law. The state dictated the 1 to 8, and then the 9 to 16. You know, so they passed a law years ago. This has kind of been on the books. I've been like going on my 16th year at the city, and it was that way when I started in 06. Yeah, I think it's been that way for quite a while. They really haven't changed that at all since I've been here. So it's kind of dictated. They do have to have a license. If you saw, one of the conditions is they have to have a city business license and then a state daycare. And I think they have to have an inspection, at least one by the state. And I think the health department may do it down here through the county. I'm not sure who does it, but for them to get their state license, they have to have a city business license and meet whatever other criteria to get that. And then once they get that, they have to give us a copy of the current one, always on file. And I think they have to renew them at least every year or every other year, one of the two.
And in addition to that, you've got here that they have to have the building department and the fire department inspect the home before this is given approval.
Yeah, but we just check to make sure that it's a sound, you know, the building department's just going to go make sure it meets exiting, things like that would be required for that. Fire department's going to pretty much do the same thing, make sure it's sound, make sure they have the required fire extinguishers, and, you know, depending on the number and where it's at, distance of travel, everything. So both those departments will go do an inspection. Now people say, why don't you make them do it before you do this? Well, we used to do that, and then people would never show up here, and our fire department, our building department are really busy, as everybody knows, especially right now. So we like to put them in as a condition of approval, because I'd rather only send them out instead of not just going after, because it seemed like for every 2 that people started to apply for, they never came in to the commission with their thing. And yet we were sending people out to do inspections, and I'm trying to not have them go off their regular duties if I don't have to. So if this gets approved, then it's based on the conditions they get those approvals. So, as I have been asked that in the past. So
I think, yeah, more so I was just wondering if there was a way to monitor. Obviously, the state allows 8 from 6 to 3.
no, it's
and
just
then
because of the one person.
16.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
The
so-
time, I'm just saying the time, because that's,
Yeah.
you know, we're going to let them break at that time, but it's because of the number of the caregivers.
So for safety, safety reasons, I was wondering if there was a monitoring system in place, whether it be the city or the state, that makes sure that they're adhering to those guidelines just for the safety of the community.
And, you know, we don't have anything because generally people live around and will let you know. You know, we always use that with lots of things. People say, well, how are you going to, I promise you, neighbors watch and neighbors let us know.
They count how many kids show up each morning. And
Yeah. That's your best source, because they're right there 24/7, 365, you know, so.
Do we have a recommended square footage per child that's in a in-home daycare?
I haven't seen anything like that. Now, I know if you're watching, say, if you're a chrysalis or somebody that's caring for them 24/7, like, you know, those kind of, I don't want to call them patients, but, you know, under that kind of institution thing, there is a minimum of living space that you have to have a minimum square footage. But on daycares, I haven't really ever seen one.
Yeah, it just seems like 16 is a lot for a home, a residential home.
And really, yeah, the homes in that subdivision aren't. I guess, does it state what the square
Well,
footage is?
then I guess it comes up, maybe they didn't put it on there, because where do you draw the line in the sand? Because it's, you know, one person's line should be way up here and another person says, I'm not, so, you know, and so I don't think you can ever come across, if you left it up to a committee, you'd never find that line. It's going to be a scribble mark, and then everybody's yelling at each other. So they really haven't put a minimum size, or else I think they would have if that was.
Just, this is Sheil, just comment with development to the south. Is this going to connect into Camino? Is this ever?
No.
It never will.
Nope,
It's
it
only-
is where it is. There's
it's only
nothing else
little-
coming in or
yeah.
going out. It's
Yeah.
developed, in all the places that it can.
Right. Okay, thank you.
This is Commissioner Anderson. I guess a question for you, Drew. Are operating hours all the way till 10 p.m.? Is that normal for a daycare?
No,
Or is that what they're
it's
requesting?
not. That's what they're requesting.
Okay.
I mean, most of them go, and again, depends on who their clients are. If you had parents that worked later at night, they might want to offer that. Now, are all 16 going to be there till 10? Seriously doubt it. Where there might be one or two, because it might be a single mom who has to work. She drops them off at 3, can't pick them up till then, and these guys are offering that. Then they would probably be 1 to 2, maybe 3. Most of them aren't going to be that. Just in the history of it. So it wouldn't be all 16, but I don't know how you put a number on saying, well, after 7, you can only have. I mean, that's up for you. You guys can debate that and do that. Offer that bout as again, this is a conditional use permit. And this is just as much for you as I'm telling the audience. That means it's a permitted use in a residential zone. So we can't just come because we don't like it, just deny it because no, we don't think you should. So it is permitted. Now you could put on mitigations. And they can either accept them, and if they don't want to accept them, then you can deny it because they're not willing to mitigate that out. But all your concerns, you have to give them an opportunity to mitigate them. And that's just state law. I'm not saying that's city law. And so anything that falls in a conditional use permit, and especially in this case, it's permitted use with possible conditions on it. That's just how, unfortunately, the law is, and this city has it on the books that way, and a lot of cities do. So that's just for a lot of the folks here that can't just flat out deny it, unless there was some hardcore things that just made it health, safety, welfare, or endangering the children that would be there, something to that effect. So, you could base it on that, but you can't try to stuff things into that envelope. It has to be legitimately.
Are we concerned about just one entrance into and out of that subdivision?
Well, if I was worried about just for this daycare and not for everybody that lives there, see, that's what you have to look at.
Yeah.
If it's that bad, then we need to start telling people we got to move out and we're going to have to start buying home. I'm just, that's how you have to look at it sometimes because it is what it is, to that extent. So, and how many of these are going to have multiple kids? I know that, at least some of the comments you read, some of them have 2 or 3 kids. And in a lot of the daycares, there is a brother or a sister, siblings that go with it. So it's not always 16 individual kids. It's sometimes many times siblings that'll end up at a particular daycare. When my kids were younger, I didn't take them to separate daycares. They went to the same one. And that's kind of how most people, go through that with when they have kids that are in daycare. So
I have another comment. And it has nothing to do with this one's particular, but I was just in my mind thinking, okay, what if the whole subdivision turns into a daycare? How, at what point does the city, how do we monitor that? But that may be a thought for city down the road. Not that would happen, but just a thought. How many, how many daycares in a certain.
Or do we want to make one subdivision, all the daycares in it, right? And take it all at once and nobody else has to deal with it. But there is a point there. And if you do come to that, then you could start saying, well, we already have 6 of them in this particular, especially in this case with one road, you could start saying, there are too many and sorry, and because again, it starts getting into that health, safety, and welfare thing if you have too many of them.
This is Commissioner Anderson. So question, there was a comment in there, a couple comments that had alleged that there had been past criminal activity at the home. Is that something that the police department looks into when somebody's applying for a license, or is that something that's not part of their jurisdiction? Or I didn't know if the city had any process with that or not.
No, we really don't. Like I say, as I look in my neighborhood over the 18 years I've lived there, I'd probably have to say, I have some decent neighbors, but every once in a while things go awry, and things are called in. So if we base it all on that, then, You know, again, yeah, it's, you know, and again, it's different reports. I heard one say once and then someone else had it, you know, it's happened a couple times, but I don't know, you know, how much we can weigh that in on this. So
I think for licensing under a daycare, is there not a background check?
on the person doing it, yes.
So
Yeah.
On the applicant.
Yeah, the owner and the runner and operator of it does, the state runs an extensive background check. Now, let's say there's a registered sex offender, you know, either in the home or in the neighborhood. And if they find that, they won't issue a state license. They'll just say, nope, you're within too many feet of this particular type of a possible disaster, and they won't give the license. They do an extensive one because they know where all of them are. You know, sometimes the cities don't get that, but they're tied into that system that shows where every single one of them are. And it's constantly updated, from what I understand, with the state, you know, facility that sends them out,
we could actually look at
licensing.
Does the second caregiver have to go through the same background check? Do you know? Or is it just the neighbor girl from down the street that they hire? That's my question.
And I don't know if that person does. I think it just has to be in a, you know, a certain
Supervisor.
age,
Okay.
supervising, you know, a second person there that's competent.
That falls under OSHA probably.
Right. And, you know, and that's where it rests on the shoulders of the applicant operator.
That was my question.
Yeah.
So this is a public hearing. Why don't we open up the public hearing and maybe we could address that with the applicant? But we've had a lot of comments come in. Well, not a lot. We had 10 comments come in. And out of the 10, I've got 7 that was against, and I have 3 that was for it. We have heard everything about traffic. We'd like to limit that because we understand the traffic. We don't need to really reiterate that. Anything and background checks. So any new comments we welcome, and we'd like you to state your name and we'll give you 3 minutes.
Yes, I am Adrienne Turner. I am the applicant of the conditional use permit. I am a second-time daycare runner, owner, and operator. Everybody is background checked who lives in the home. Everybody who will work there is background checked. There are no sex offenders who live in the home. What other questions do you have, other concerns that I could answer for you?
Thanks for coming up. So
what are the guidelines for having 16 children? I mean, 8 at a time. 8 at a time.
It's 8 children per child care provider, and it is 3 under the age of 2 per person and no more than 2 infants. So then it would be 3 under the age of 3, and the rest of them would be 5 and over. And that's per child care provider. But I am not going to hold 16 children in the home, ever.
How many have you had?
8 maximum.
8 max?
8 maximum. I do not want to try to take on more than that. When I did it before, I never had more than 8, and I don't want to take on that much responsibility by myself, even though after 3:00 p.m. when my oldest daughter, well, my second oldest daughter gets home from school, I could have more, but I do not want to.
This is Commissioner Bullock. Why the 10 p.m.? Why so late?
So I myself am a single parent. I have not had any support from my ex-husband since 2011. He has not seen my children. He has not helped with the children. It's been myself and my parents who have taken care of my children. I understand how hard it is not only to just get an education, but to find work and to maintain that work without having anybody else to take care of the children. That is why I chose 10 p.m. Of course, they'll be going to bed at like 7:30, 8 o'clock. And then their parents woken up for their parents when they get picked up.
So what's your relationship with the owner?
My mother.
Okay.
How many square footage do you have for the?
It's 4,200 square feet.
That's
and then
dedicated
the
for
basement is half of that, so 2,100 square feet.
So the entire basement is dedicated for the kids to run around?
not run around. Of course, there are child-proof doorknobs on all the doors. The bedrooms will be used as napping areas, and then the main area is this big area over here. If you can move your mouse a little bit to the right.
It's, let me see if I can,
Up.
it's,
Right there. Oh, down a little bit. Right there, that main area is
Right
the main
here?
area of the daycare, and it is sectioned off with a sectional. I have tons of books. I have a curriculum. I teach them preschool, so it's not just daycare. The children are learning.
This Commissioner Anderson, have you obtained like all of your insurance and so forth, like liability insurance for the business, things of that nature?
Yes, yes, I have. And I already have been inspected too. I've had my kitchen inspection, my fire inspection. I haven't heard of the building inspection. That's not something that the state requires. So, but if it's required by the city, of course I will to get it done.
Is your home in a HOA?
Yes, it is.
Has it been approved by the HOA?
As far as I know, when I read the rules, it's not stipulated that businesses can't be inside of the neighborhood.
So with the HOA, if they had rules on it, you would need to talk to them, but as far as us as a body, we don't have anything to do with HOAs enforcing it or even talking about it. So that would be between you and them.
We could put a condition, I guess, that, couldn't we put a condition on there that they get the approval from the HOA? Is that a gray area?
I think it's gray area because we're not supposed to be part of HOA enforcement interpretations. You know,
HOA is enforced by deed restriction. That's different than city ordinances. So that's between her and the association.
So if there is such, they would have to, go through their channels. The HOA would have to go through their channels, and there are some places, there's so much of them, there's a specific judge just takes only HOA complaints, that might be one down here at Fifth District Court area, who knows, but.
Is there any other questions?
Do you have the ability to limit your time if needed, if you're only doing 8 children?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Of course. I set my own hours, but that's why I chose not to go into the night, into the wee hours of the morning, because I did that before when I lived in Salt Lake County, and I did not want to do that again.
Okay. Because I think, Drew, this has different hours on here.
I'm just trying to help support.
Well, I'm just going off of the thing, the write-up was 6:30 to 10. That is still.
Yes.
Okay, but you're also right now, I'm not saying admitting, but you're willing to accept just up to 8 kids max.
Maximum 8 kids, yes.
Okay, because right now we have it at 16 because that's what it was saying.
That's what the state law is, and
I know,
so that's what I
but
said.
I'd rather put, if you're willing to do that, that helps the neighbors a lot too, knowing there's not going to be 16, but a max at 8 at any time, of coming in. So she's willing to do that. We can just make sure that conditions change. Just a maximum of 8 kids will be at the daycare from the hours that are stated. So that cuts out right in half. So
does that make it that you don't need another caregiver?
Yes, it does.
So will you be the only caregiver?
Well, of course, when my daughter gets home, she's allowed to play with the children too.
She can still have another caregiver. She has many she
Yeah,
wants.
and that's
Don't
just a
have to.
personal choice on if I want to pay somebody else to come in and out.
Okay.
Any other concerns?
This is Commissioner Anderson, I guess, not necessarily a question for the applicant, more of a question with us and with Drew, but I just remember the last daycare we had, a person was renting the home. And in this case, she's living in her mother's home, but technically she's a tenant, even if she's not paying rent, right? And we had a condition on there that, on the last one that we did, that the conditional use was only good as long as they had an active lease. They don't have to necessarily be paying anything, but they have to be, have approval from the owner because
the conditional use
the
permit
owner's
stays
insurance and
with
so
the house.
forth would be affected by.
It's because the conditional use permit stays with the house.
Exactly.
With the property.
Anybody could come in and run another one after.
So I like that Commissioner, I think that would be wise if that's what you want to go, just say that it will run with this person, and when this person leaves, that it will become null and void. And you can put, again, there's conditions, and that's fine to do.
And that way, even if we say, you know, they have to have a valid lease, even if she signs a lease for $0 a month rent, whatever, at least she has a lease that says, yes,
That makes
she's
sense.
allowed to live here and operate the business here. That's what we require of the other people.
Okay, any other comments from? We were expecting you one more time.
Why didn't you just stay in the front row? You saved yourself. And
Dean Larson again.
Dean, thanks for coming up.
Thank you. I'm a retired fire chief and fire marshal, so I have some concerns with this, a couple of questions. Do you have a means of egress out the basement? And do you have hardwire early warning devices, smoke detectors, CO detectors, and fire extinguishers? That's my concern. Thank you.
Great concern. Thank you.
Thanks, Dean. That would be what the fire inspection verifies.
Please state your name.
Hi, my name is Kelly Stevens. I live directly to the south of the petitioner, okay? So we share a block wall. That's all we share. Now, you have voiced and have said that we don't have any presence about or you have spoke about the traffic, but you didn't care, and you didn't care either. But
No,
we
I
had-
didn't say we didn't
Don't-
care. I
don't
said
say
that
we don't care.
We understood
No.
it.
Oh, my goodness.
you can't say we don't care.
Oh, well,
We have to.
all right.
Well, go ahead. You have your go ahead, but don't. We're not. I'm not going to
But I'm
say
going to
that
say
they
you
don't
right
care.
now, I hate this conflict. I hate this altogether. And I moved into this community, 17 years ago, built the house in 2005 and moved in. And now that things have changed for me personally, I've just lost my husband. And now I am a, single woman living in this community with people coming in and out of my very safe community until 10 o'clock at night. Now, I feel that's a concern, and you should be thinking of that would be a concern for me. And it is, it's a valid concern. So when we purchased the lot, it was very quiet. We built the house ourselves. This particular street of Great Brook Basin is not a through street to a certain extent. Many people that do come up Mojave will turn to the right and go down to various areas of their homes, but very few will turn left onto our property or our part of the street. So it's a very quiet, very safe and peaceful little road. Now we're saying that we're going to be bringing in all these new cars. That does concern me. You have addressed the fact that she only will have 16 children. I mean, up to 16, but she's already said that she will probably try to keep that down to 8. So does that mean that if she has 16, she says she possibly could do 16, does that mean that we can't, that she might not negotiate that to 12 or 14?
Well, we've already made a comment that we're going to limit it to 8.
Well, I'm just saying that if there's that many kids in the backyard and the afternoons, wouldn't that be like having a birthday party every single day? Because that's exactly what I would be hearing every single day in my backyard. And so I understand that there is a lot of need for childcare in Washington City. There isn't a lot. I just feel like I have an HOA in this community. I don't want a daycare next to my home. Also, we address the fact that Adrian is not the homeowner. Her mother, Pat, is a fabulous woman, love her to death, but she does not pay for the upkeep of the house and the yard. Adrian does not. She might have taken the time to do some upgrades for this particular petition, but most of the time the repairs of the home are under Pat. When I asked Pat if she wanted this particular business in her home, she said she did not. So, is Adrian covered with an adequate homeowner's policy, or is Pat, that could handle any problems that could arise for the clients that might be coming? Whose responsibility is that if there is damage to the yard or to my yard? Is it mine? Is it Pat's, or is it Adrian's? Does she have enough childcare to watch all of those? Yes, her 16-year-old daughter. What happens when Adrian is ill? Who watches the children when Adrian is ill?
Grandma next door. I'm sorry.
I asked Grandma about that, Pat. I asked Pat about it. She said she would not be watching the children. Okay. All right. So I've brought up valid things that you guys have all addressed, but most of all, I'm here because of my peace of mind. And I have lived in this area, have felt peace, and the community is fabulous, and they have helped me through the death of my husband. I would hate to have that affected. So thank you for your consideration.
Yeah, we appreciate your comments. And as we spoke earlier, we do not have jurisdiction of CCNRs and HOA. We can only comment for city. We're not going to get in a legal battle with HOA. If you guys have an HOA and a CCNRs, I would admonish you to get a hold of your president and form a committee there, because we can't help you with that. So, is that correct? So, any other comments?
My
Your
name
name,
is
please.
Juliana DeBotts. I live across the street on Great Basin. And I am looking at the request of the conditional use permit, and this is not a suitable location at all. We have an HOA and I know you've already addressed this, but the problem is, why does it have to go from here to the HOA to litigate this?
We're not litigators.
No, I'm saying it goes through you to just okay the place. And then we have to fight the battle of where it should be going, which is, we don't want it.
You pay your HOA. We don't have anything to do with that.
I get that.
So
our HOA does prohibit businesses. So we'll get to that. The president is here to address that too. I think she is. Anyways, the time listed from 6:30 to 10 is just ridiculous. It's a noise problem. You know, car doors, saying bye-bye, saying hello. It's loudness that goes on. And the traffic. I don't understand. Everybody should be concerned with
we
the
understand
safety.
traffic.
Yeah.
So we hear about
You
it all
have
the time.
Nothing to do with the traffic.
Yeah.
You should be. That's all I'm saying. The property is not, cannot hold, the basement and the property can't hold this many kids. And yes, we can cut it down to 8, but that basement, the way it's outlined, there's 3 bedrooms down there. So how much room do you really have? You can't use her own kids' bedrooms as a place to go, because where are her kids going? They're always going to be there, you know, with the kids constantly. It's not suitable. The findings listed on the application, which I don't think you brought up as far as the list, this doesn't contribute to our neighborhood at all. There's not one person that's going to be using this daycare. This is a state-run subsidy, children that are subsidized by the state, and these are not the neighbors, you know, that are going to be using this.
Well, there's a few. We heard that in the comments.
This is detrimental to the health, which is the noise, and the safety, which is the cars coming and going. It's not an improvement to our neighborhood. Nobody wants to live next to it. Nobody wants it in. And all the neighbors have agreed on this. I feel if Adrian Turner and Pat Evans wasn't transparent in directly asking our HOA first to get some feedback from the neighborhood, then what else are they not transparent about? That's how I feel about it. They do not have my trust nor faith that they are doing anything good for the children. I hope this is denied. I hope it's not approved.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Any other comments? Please, let's limit them to 3 minutes. We want to keep this thing moving.
I'm Stephanie Bland. I am to the left of her. I'm concerned about the kids more than anything. Sorry, I'm a crier. She also has 3 children at home who she is taking the space away from those children. And I'm talking about the space in her basement because she's not allowed upstairs. Neither are her kids. And so that also pushes them outside, which is their backyards basically into our backyard, and the constant noise. And also not shown on the back, our backyard's going to an easement, and they have a gate that opens and closes that is access to a pond, which is not good. Also, you need to check the police reports because the cops have been called out multiple times on her son, who does not live there but constantly visits. And I'm concerned about the children that will be in that home. And there's also a sex offender reported in our neighborhood. And again, they haven't contacted the HOA or even their neighbors to ask if this is something if we wanted to even they never even talked to us about it. I'm mostly concerned about her 3 other children who have to have these 8 other kids in her home. And I'm really concerned about her son who does not live there, who gets the cops called on him often for violence in the home. Thank you.
Yep, thank you for your comments.
Good afternoon. My name is Carrie Sigler, and I'm the Director of Care About Child Care, which is a child care resource and referral here in out of 5 County Association of Governments, which is a subsidiary or part of Department of Workforce Services. So what we do is we basically work with all the licensed child care programs.
Could you pull the mic down just a little bit, please? Thank you.
Preschools.
I got these crazy things in my ears and I hate them.
get it. And we do all of their trainings. We also work with parents, and we educate parents on what to look for in quality child care. Family child care in our area is very much needed. We want children or parents to have that opportunity to pick between a center and a family child care. COVID has hit us really hard. We have 4 family child cares in Washington City, and one of them has 1 opening. We have 2 centers in Washington City, and there's no openings there at all. So we are really grateful to see this. I can answer any questions that you have on licensing because we work very close with licensing. Anybody that's 12 and older is fingerprinted. They have to be licensed. License will come out. She has a licensor that comes out. They will do inspections on the home. They will do mock inspections, and they will come when they don't know they're coming. So they can have an inspection at any time. It does not matter. So they run that. Square footage, you'd asked about square footage. Square footage is 35 square foot per child. Outside, I think it's 75. She has well enough room. You can also use the other areas in the basement as long as they're supervised, and they all know that they need to be supervised. We are in desperate need in St. George and in Washington for childcare. Desperate need. I have COVID money coming out of my ears that they tell me you have to spend. So she will get quite a bit of money for equipment and for toys for children. We also look at the family situation. She gets to stay home with her children. Yeah, she's got other children there, but that just makes a nice big family. And I know there's a lot of concern about noise. Yeah, children are going to be noisy. They're going to play and they're going to have a good time. And I'm sure that we all know that. I drop my grandson off at a home daycare in St. George every single day. And I'm usually the only one at that front door when I drop him off. The other thing is that she may be open until 10. She's not going to get a lot of people till 10, but she might get that single mom who is a waitress and needs that one child there at 10 because we have nothing after maybe 6 or 7. Any questions that I can answer for you at this point in time?
What is it that you facilitate for, you help her with her licensing through the state? Or?
I'm not licensing. We work with licensing. We're the referral agency that works with their training. So she will have so much training that she has to do every single year. We also work with parents that are searching for childcare, and they may be searching for a certain thing. So maybe she meets the needs of that family and maybe somebody else does not, or they bond together better. But those families that are searching for childcare, they have to look for what their needs are. They can't just go to little Harvard or wherever because it's the only one. We want them to have a lot of choice in that.
You live in the area?
I live in St. George.
Have you visited the property?
No, I have not yet. We're getting ready for a huge early childhood development conference, so we'll be there soon.
So who monitors? Who goes
Child care licensing monitors them.
Licensing. Mm-hmm. And do you know how often they do that?
They do that twice a year.
Twice a year.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And if there are complaints or anything, they will immediately come down for that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is it Planning Commission or City Council or both?
Planning Commission.
Okay. So do any of you live in an HOA? You do? Okay. So there's a purpose of an HOA. I'm just going to read just a little bit, and then I'm going to read you the article that specifically addresses the business and commercial activity. A little more than half of the homeowners of the United States live under some form of an HOA structure. These associations establish rules for neighborhood or complex, maintain common areas, and generally ensure that group living is a good experience for the members. So I'm just going to read you Article 10 or Article X, whichever you want to say. Item number 10.2, business or commercial activity. Subject to the following exceptions, no part of the property shall ever be used or caused to be used or allowed or authorized to be used in any way, directly or indirectly, for any business, commercial, manufacturing, mercantile, storage, vending, or other non-residential purposes without the prior written approval of the board. Provided, however, that the declarant is successor and assigns may be used any portion of the property for a model home site, display, and sales office in connection with the sale of lots on the property by declarant. Occupations without external evidence, therefore including without limitation, traffic generation, which are merely incidental to the use of the dwelling unit as a residential home, and for so long as such occupants are conducted in conformance with all applicable government ordinance shall be permitted. So, that was not done. and I sent a comment to you, and I appreciate Doug's comment about referring to the HOA. There's a reason why people choose to live in an HOA and those that do not. There's specific rules, and we have those rules because we want a certain, living atmosphere. And so I'm representing the HOA and saying that the prior written authorization was not completed, and I would ask that you make that, one of the conditions. If you don't live in a HOA, then you can do whatever. And that's all I have to say. So thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I look for a motion to close this public hearing.
This is Commissioner Mitchell. I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Commissioner Anderson, I second.
I have first and second to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, public hearing has been closed. Is there further comment from the planning commissioners for staff on this?
Do we need to get the owner's approval for this?
There's signatures on the application.
Is on the application, okay.
On any of these, we make sure the owner.
Is it a notarized application?
Luckily, it's mom in this case, but sometimes it isn't. And so, the owner always does. That's why if it is someone renting, we have a place for the applicant and the homeowner. And sometimes it's the same person. Other times it's not. Sometimes they mail it away and it comes back signed. So.
But us as a city, we cannot interfere with CCNRs. So that has to be their own battle.
The way this is Commissioner Anderson, the way that the HOA is, like if there's an HOA violation, you can't go to the police and ask them to come and take care of it. It doesn't work. You don't go to the city either. The way it works is it's a deed restriction, which means the HOA, if there's a violation of CCNRs, they can send out fines, et cetera. If the people choose not to pay the fines, then HOA law is regulated by deed restriction, meaning they can put a lien on that person's property. Now, they still don't necessarily have to pay the fine unless they want to sell their house or refinance their house, which in that case they would have to before they could sell. But that's how HOA law is enforced, is through deed restriction. It's not through city law. It's just, we just don't have jurisdiction over that. That's all. We're not saying we approve or disapprove of HOA. That's just not how the law works.
Good comment. We needed that. Any other comments, or I look for a motion?
So this is Commissioner Mitchell, and maybe just to address and maybe share my thoughts to address some of the comments, but I live in a subdivision. I have a large family. I feel like there's people coming and going to a regular home. I have 5 kids. I mean, you're going to make noise, but I don't feel like this necessarily increases. Maybe you're still going to get traffic through your neighborhood, even friends coming over or whatever. So I don't want the comments to go unheard, but I feel like that her agreement to hold it to 8 people is a huge step. I mean, I feel like that's reasonable. But I guess I just feel like that you're going to get traffic in a neighborhood no matter what, just with friends.
Yeah. I think we need them. I do think we need childcare. I'm concerned about the single access, ingress and egress out of the subdivision. That concerns me. But, they have a number of residents there that have to deal with that, and they knew what they were getting into. So.
This is Commissioner Anderson. I have a couple thoughts. I think like Commissioner Mitchell said, I think that limiting the number of children to 8 is a good idea. Now, I do have a question for Drew. If she has 3 of her own kids, does that mean that she can have 5 kids, like her 3 make up that 8, or she can have 8 plus her 3? How does that work?
She can have eight
Total?
clients that come, yeah.
Okay, so 8 plus her 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think most of her kids are older, it sounds like.
Okay, so I guess, I think 8 puts it a lot more in the realm, especially where it's a smaller home. That makes it better. I mean, I have 5 kids and 2 grandkids and a million friends that are over all day long, and I've probably got 12 kids in my house, unfortunately, all the time. But but I think limiting to 8 would really help. I have concerns about the hours, but I've got mixed feelings. I see the reason for needing, a single mom, like the lady said, that would need daycare in the evening, and there's nowhere else to do it. But I also wouldn't want to have, 8 people picking up kids at 10 p.m. either. So so I'm not entirely sure how we want to. I don't want to completely restrict any availability for a single mom to have access to that, because I think that's important. But I also want to be respectful of the neighbors, especially 10 o'clock's fairly late. It's after dark.
I agree. I think we need the applicant to tell us what hours she's willing to minimize to.
I personally think that the 10 p.m. I wasn't for it, but understanding there might be a couple, I don't have a problem with a couple. I mean, all 8 of them getting picked up at 10 o'clock, I don't think that's highly likely to happen. I don't think 10 o'clock's really going to happen. I think that we should limit it so that there's no outside play after a certain time, so that there is downtime and they are inside the home. But as far as being picked up at 10 o'clock, I mean, cars are going to drive through the neighborhood at 10 o'clock. I mean, I don't think you're going to have 8 extra vehicles. Maybe, who knows, there might be more kids, but so it would be, I didn't love the idea of the hours, but I understand them. So that's my thing on it, is I don't think you'll have all of them there. If we're going to 8, you're not going to have 8 different vehicles picking them up at 10 o'clock. That would be that's just the way I see it. I don't really see that being, and then dropping them off at 6 again in the morning. Those are pretty late hours.
Commissioner Anderson again, a couple other thoughts. One I talked about earlier. I think for sure we need to have a valid lease signed by the applicant, even if it is for a $0 amount. And I think with that, even though she signed the application, I think we should have on that lease, or maybe an addendum to it, just explicit approval from the owner or landlord, or whatever you want to call it, her mother, that she's okay with this.
I'd put it as the landowner. We don't want to tie the familial thing to it.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
it'd be the landowner who has to sign, that. So,
and again, my reasoning is that if the landowner signed the application, but there have been people that have said that she's told them that she doesn't approve it. There's some other things that I'm not sure what to make of, the comment that she's not allowed upstairs and none of her children are allowed upstairs. That makes me wonder, is this an approved accessory dwelling unit, or what do we, it was just an odd comment that I don't know what the answer to that is. So again, I just want to make sure we've got all the facts here when we're making a decision with this. So that would be my big thing. I think for sure a valid lease, a signed agreement by the landowner for approval for the business, limited to 8 kids. And I don't know about this not allowed upstairs thing. I don't know if anyone has any answers on that. I don't know what that
shouldn't
means,
have anything to do with us.
Well, my reasoning is if the upstairs is being used as part of the square footage, but they're not allowed
It's
upstairs.
not, it was downstairs only, is what it showed in there.
Okay. Okay, so that's, again, that's what I'm asking. Drew, is that what it is? The daycare facility is in the
Yes,
basement?
downstairs.
Downstairs only?
Yep.
So did they have an way out of the basement other than going upstairs?
Well, that's where the fire department, building department are going to check egress windows. Every basement should have them anyway.
Right.
Especially this home built at the time it is. It better have windows that you can get out of.
Okay.
And those act as that secondary.
So this Commissioner Mitchell, with Corey's comment about the accessory dwelling, is there a particular document that needs to be executed to satisfy that accessory dwelling?
Well, I'll just put it this way, if they can meet the regular definition of a family, then it doesn't apply.
Got you.
You know, because people, you can't, it's like that one's not a double-edged sword. It's just going to have one cutting side to it, unfortunately. So if it's blood relatives or up to 5 unrelated people make a family by definition in Washington City. So it seems that they're all related, that, whatever they choose internally, like you said, we don't get into family contracts. When I look at anything across the board, someone trying to rent out a room in their house, or it's a couple wanting to rent out 2 or 3 rooms, well, they can't do that, without making an extra separate dwelling unit, and again, you'd have to have its own cooking facilities, bathing facility, etc., things like that, its own entrance and exit blocked off from the other. That's not this case, but it's all family. So
I had one other comment I felt like maybe we did address, because there was concern about crime. I just personally feel like, none of us can control what goes on in a neighborhood. I feel like it would be the responsibility of the parent that hires this daycare to do their background check and see what's going on in the neighborhood and become familiar with where they're dropping off their children. But we never know who's going to, come into a neighborhood, or someone that's living in the neighborhood make a choice. It could be any of our neighbors. Let's do it.
Drew, with the comments about the son that's had issues, I mean, I completely understand the comment about it, and I get that. I'm not sure what I don't know what our response to that allegation would be, or what would even be allowed to ask or do. I mean, can you help me out with that?
Well, that's a tough one, because I don't know where the law would be on that. I mean, if he had if he's one of the caregivers, I think you can put up a big red flag for that. But if, and he doesn't live there, all those things, but he shows up, we don't know what those are. And I'd have to ask, how about anybody else that lives in the neighborhood? Does anybody else have a criminal thing too? It's like, I can't just hold it against if there's other ones in the neighborhood as well. And it goes back to the HOA thing. I always point out for anybody, for HOAs too, if, whenever you have those laws, you better make sure that you didn't let someone else do a business in there because it didn't affect anybody. Because if a judge knows that, like you just say, well, somebody who does stuff and it's a small business, but you know about it, but it says none at all and they didn't get permission, you kind of put yourself on a hook that way as an HOA as well. If you didn't enforce it on one, a judge is going to look and say, well, that becomes null and void, So that's just information I pass out for all when they come in and talk to me about that. I said, I hope that the whole subdivision is clean and perfect in that, sense, because that's how it kind of needs to be, the way those laws work. It gets back to that HOA laws and stuff. And sometimes those are the things that kill HOA, all these requirements. If they didn't enforce it on one because they're the nicest couple in the subdivision, they'd never harm anybody. But if you let it go, then you can't hold it to the, the person you don't like or whatever. Those things aren't flexible. So, and again, but it gets back to all this. We have all these unknowns that we, if we go into that in every single thing we do, yeah, unfortunately. So you can weigh that out. That, as a commission, I say you can. If you have that concern about that and that son you think is a danger to it, Doesn't mean you can't hold it out, but I can't, you gotta weigh that out. Is that, to what it is, the extent that you want to. I think you have a fairness to do that. So, and that's why we hold public hearings, because we don't know all the things in a neighborhood. That's why the people can come and tell you all the things that are going on that we won't have knowledge of. So,
This is Commissioner Anderson. Adrian, I have some questions for you, if you could.
This is Adrian Turner again.
So, and I apologize, I know these are some personal questions, but I'd like to get a little bit of clarification on this, if some of the things that were said have any bearing or not, or et cetera. I mean, a couple things. One would be, well, actually, I guess the main one are the allegations against your son, especially where you have children. People are hiring you to take care of their children, et cetera.
Is it your son or your brother?
It's my son, yes, and he has autism level 1, and he was a violent autistic person when he was younger. Unfortunately, the reason why there's been a break with the dad is because he was extremely physically abusive. And growing up until he was 7 years old, he took on those characteristics, and it's really hard to teach autistic children out of that. But he's been in a group home off and on since he was 13, but steadily since 2019, the January of 2019. He does come to visit periodically. He has been over almost every day for the last 2 weeks because of his own personal life, but he's not going to be around the daycare children. He'll be visiting on the weekends once daycare opens.
And how old is he now?
He's 19, he'll be 19 on the 27th of May. So it's all juvenile, what they're talking about, and sealed records.
Okay, thank you.
Are we going to talk about going up and down, upstairs or downstairs?
Just a quick question, Commissioner Mitchell. So does that fall onto us, that responsibility of?
No, I don't think it does.
It kind of feels like that's
of a land use
licensing
and
background checks. And maybe that's a question for, who is the
dad?
No, the individual that
Is there, yeah.
came in to tell us about the daycare. Is there something that takes place on state or community level that does a background check on the family and the individuals as a part of the family before allowing someone to get a license to do daycare?
Yeah, anybody in.
Would you state your name again?
Oh, I'm sorry, Carrie Sigler. Anybody in the home that is 12 and up has to be fingerprinted and background checked. If we're talking about her son, and if he has a background or any type of legal issues or anything like that, he's not allowed to be around the children at all. And that's why she says that he would only come on the weekends. So if he were there and somebody found out, licensing would sure show up and write her up and probably fine her quite a bit. That's huge. And that would be for anybody. I mean, if anybody were to come into the home and stay with those children and she knew that they had some sort of a legal background, then that would not be okay.
Can I just jump in? Is there a strike 1, strike 2, strike 3 on that, where if, you can get fined once, but then the next time you get a revocation? What is that process, if there is one? I don't think they'd keep just fining them, that doesn't.
No,
help.
they would lose their license eventually, but I don't
Don't
know
know
how
what
many strikes
how many
there
strikes
are.
you get.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is Commissioner Anderson. So I think that, and I feel for the applicant. I feel for her son that has autism. I mean, I can't imagine how difficult that would be. But I also think that with the conditional use, we have to at least make every effort that we have jurisdiction over to look out for some of the other kids that are there as well, especially where that's a state licensing thing. I think one thing that we for sure have to put on here as a condition is that that the son is not there during business hours. And if the business hours are Monday through Friday, 6:30 to 10, again, if that's a state
I don't
licensing
feel like
thing,
we have the authority or the knowledge of any of his criminal background to make that decision on one person, where the state says that they cannot have him there. I think we're overstepping our bounds if we single out one person on that. I don't think that's a good idea, just because that's a slippery slope. I think
No,
we don't need to go
know
down.
it is. I know it
And by
is.
putting stipulations on one person, that's not a good idea.
I guess my only reason, and I agree
I
with you, Shane.
understand.
I totally know how that can become a slippery slope. I mean, what I'm concerned with is, they've said that it's a state requirement, that someone that doesn't pass a background check. Now, I don't know, maybe he did pass a background check and it's not an issue, but let's say that he didn't, okay, just for the sake of argument. And then he was coming, like she just said, every day for the last 2 weeks. Well, that would be in violation of her state license, but the state will only come out and inspect twice a year. And so the only reason I'm
You get
saying,
a phone call.
So
And
I guess
obviously the neighbors are going to be watching.
Right. No. So that's why I'm saying, should it be part of the conditional uses, because that gives the neighbors a means of helping enforce that, because I see what you're saying. Like we don't know if the son passed a background check or not, and I don't want to get too far down that rabbit
Well,
hole.
he would have to reside in the home is what that criteria is. It's anybody in the home, 12 and over, that resides in the home. This isn't his residence. Like, they can't regulate the visiting and the coming and going of visitors on any of those. So this one, in case that's heading to somewhere we don't need, it'd only be if he resides in the home, he'd have to have the background.
And I'm
He
not
would
trying
have
to take it.
Yeah, no, I'm
too far
just.
one way. I'm just trying to think this through a little bit.
Yeah.
And I guess if I'm thinking as one of the residents in the neighborhood, let's say that they were concerned with this, and a person was there, and they had concerns with it. I guess if it's not a conditional use, and they call the city and have issue, is there anything that can be done? Probably not. Would they then, what they would call the state licensing board? Is that who
Yeah, they
would
could call us, and we could call the state
Go
line, or
ahead.
they could call them direct. In fact, I always tell anybody, a citizen calling directly to some place, it's like, I'll get a lot of calls because community development people think everything in the city comes, through here. But so I'll just say, well, it's better if you call the code compliance officer yourself. You're going to get a lot more direct, because sometimes, a staff member to a staff member doesn't move as quickly as a citizen to that staff member. And so I would just say that any folks, for that thing is, I'd get the number of the state licensing, have the lady who was here telling you all that, just get that direct, and they can all have that number, to call the state licensing right away of anything. So you call them directly as the person. It's going to move a lot quicker than trying to go from one person to another then in. So if that helps you on that.
Yeah, thank you. I'm all in favor of people providing a service as needed and having the right to start a business and all that. And I 100% agree with that. I just want to make sure that the residents at least have an idea of what avenue they have. Again, not to report an HOA violation. That would be through the HOA. But if they see something that has a legitimate concern, that they at least know who to call and so forth. That's why I brought all that up.
Anybody want to take a stab at a motion?
I like the fact that we tie it to a lease and not the property. like we have before. So get a lease wrote up for however many months or whatever, and then once that lease is done, then, or, yeah, I mean, I don't.
Lease expires, they have to reapply.
Or if
That's
it's,
what we did
or
with
if
the
it's
last one.
revoked or whatever the lease says, but it should be on the lease and not connected to the property, because
Yeah.
I don't like them connected to properties. That's me personally.
Agree. I also like the the addendum to that saying that they give approval, the landowner gives approval to operate this business, on their property.
But it did on the application.
Yeah, but it's fine to,
Right,
I think,
okay,
put
yeah.
that on there,
It's a
just to
good extra
like
thing.
double that up. I didn't know if you wanted to ask or get more of a thing on the 10 o'clock thing or a limit too. I know you talked about that. It's worth asking the applicant if she's willing to give you something to help there, saying, I may only have from 7 o'clock till here, that I'll be limited to X amount. That's-
Adrian, do you have a comment on that?
Again, my name is Adrienne Turner. Yes, I do have a comment on that. I most definitely am willing to limit the amount of children that are in there. My nighttime hours in my contract that has been drafted is from 3 o'clock until 10 o'clock p.m. And so I am willing to limit that. I'm willing to take suggestions.
When you say your contract, what do you mean? Because you have, your hours say 6 to 10. What's the,
6:30 until 10 p.m. My daytime hours are from 6:30 until 7. So those are the daytime hour charges. And then from 3:30, so there's a lap between 3 until 7, that half of them could be considered to be nighttime, half of them could be considered to be daytime, and then 10 o'clock is the cutoff for the nighttime hours. That's the way how it's stated in my contract.
Would you be willing to stay with the daytime hours, the 6:30 to 7?
I would be, yeah. I think it would be a disservice to some of the community, but
What
I
if,
would be.
so sorry, this Commissioner Mitchell, because I think I'm kind of along with Pete on the hours, but could we limit to indoors only from 7 to 10?
Absolutely.
Put a condition in there to,
no, I like that, but
Can you limit from
The
7 to
kids-
10, how many children there
yeah,
are?
that's what I was
Gotcha.
wondering. Is it, can you limit it from 7 to 10 to 4 children?
Yes, I
Maybe
would.
4 children after 7 or something like that, and indoor only? Something like
Yes.
that. That
I'll
would be
stipulate it in my contract, and I'll show it to the committee.
that would also be something that, like Drew said, if neighbors see a violation of that, I mean, this is what, if this gets put into the conditional use, if there's violation of that, that's where neighbors call code enforcement. That's the message.
Well, they would actually, on the conditions for this,
Or come to you, I
they
guess.
call to me, and then if I verify those violations happen, then what we do is we let you know that, and that we can bring that back before you for a possible revocation of the CUP. You can revoke a CUP if they don't follow the conditions. That's what the CUP is based on. That first word, the conditional use permit. So, if you don't keep those conditions, you can be before the board. Now, usually what they try to do is mitigate, just say, okay, you're here, you admit it, you're not going to do it again. We're going to give you, if you're come before us again, there won't be much talk. It'll just be revoked. I mean, if they're serious, you can just revoke them right off. They're bad. But I haven't ever seen that happen in my career. I've only been to 3 revocation meetings, and we usually give them time to correct and be good. The wrist gets slapped, and then they pretty much fly straight. I've never had to come back and, actually pull one ever in 27 years. So
Ms. Turner, do you currently have a written lease agreement?
No, I don't. The way how it works between my mother and I is I pay all of the bills. The house is paid for, but I pay for all the bills. But because I haven't been able to do so since November, she's been doing it, but I owe her that money back.
So then that, if we're going to tie this to the lease,
You need to have a lease signed up. It can be for 0 amount or whatever, but
Can you have a lease for 0? I don't know that you really.
Yeah, I don't think it
know, the
matters.
terms.
We don't care about the money. It's just that agreement between
We just need an
her and her
agreement.
mother. They can just write something up that
It's
just
saying that you
says,
can do it with there, and then once that agreement is expired, then the CUP goes away.
yep.
And it can be a lease for what she just said to, you know,
Yeah.
at least for paying the utilities.
Yeah,
Whatever.
I mean, that's,
That's the
Again,
exchange, yeah.
it's not,
I mean, it would be difficult to tie it to a lease that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, well, that would be,
we'll
we
have
would
to
make
get
that
the
a
lease part
condition
of the condition.
of this.
And see, we won't issue business license till I have all those inspection reports in my possession. And, you know, whatever else you would tie on, we'd have to have all that in a file. Then we'll release the business license.
See, because I think the last time when we tied it to the lease, I think we were comfortable with it because the lease was a 2-year term. And that was kind of a test run. In this case, we don't know what the term of the lease is gonna be.
Well, it'd have to, at least has to have a term on it, so,
Whatever they figure it out to
Yeah,
be.
what if it's
but-
written for 25 years?
well,
Well, as long as she's there, it's fine. The problem was is that other person didn't own the home, so when they left, that CUP stayed with that property, and the next person could come in and still do another one there without having to come back to us.
Right.
Correct?
That's right. You wouldn't
So
know who that
we
owner. They
wouldn't
still
know
have
who
to
the next
follow the
person was.
conditions, but you don't know that person.
Right. We
Or what they're
wouldn't
doing.
get to see it. So if
and we could
tie
say
it
that
to
it
the
has to
lease-
be a year lease or every 2-year lease or whatever, I mean,
it doesn't matter.
whatever.
Okay.
So can I make a quick comment, not about the lease, but the hours, the nighttime hours. Sorry, I'm just in my mind, I'm thinking there's certain times of the year where 7 o'clock to me seems
Still
early.
pretty early. I was
Yeah.
thinking that too.
That, I mean, my kids are out making a lot of noise until
8:30.
8:30. I mean, when it's light in the summertime. So I mean, what is a good indoor only time frame?
Maybe we say indoor only after dark. That way it fluctuates with the time of day, I don't know. Cause you're right,
I mean, it's vague, but in the wintertime, it's going to be even earlier.
right, I know, that's
One
what I'm saying.
outside,
That-
yeah, I
that's-
mean,
Maybe 8.
It's not tied,
oh, no,
it's not
because
tied to the
she's only
hours.
going to 8.
They
She's
have-
only
Tied to the
having
number of
8
kids.
kids. So we've cut it from 16 to 8. So there's still only going to be 8.
We already limited it to 8. Or, yeah, so it's
From
not a
7 to 10,
caregiver.
didn't you go down to 4?
7 to 10's 4, and then we set a indoor only time frame. I'm not sure.
You said
where
your
to go
nighttime
there.
hours were 3, huh?
From
So
3
they would
until 10, yep.
3 to 10. So if we,
Well, she said she was gonna limit it. She's willing to limit it to 7, but you guys want to accommodate the waitresses, but waitresses also work on the
no.
weekends.
well, she's not open on the weekends.
Not open on weekends.
But that's my point, is they work all hours, so there's a disservice between 7 and 10 and a
Oh,
disservice on
but
the
she's
weekend
asking
as
for
well.
those hours.
She can still, what we're talking about is still being able to have up to 4 children during those late hours. They're just indoors, but the question
Yeah,
is,
so
when
4,
is the indoor, outdoor?
yeah, 4 children from 7 to 10, and then regulation on indoor hours.
I don't know. I would
Eight.
say indoor after dark. I mean, I'm just thinking of,
Yeah, it's hard to nail that down.
it's hard to know, but
Yeah,
I would
'cause
say 8.
Yeah, 8 or 8:30, somewhere in there. Yeah, 8.
8 o'clock maybe.
'Cause it's a little bit nicer in the day too at 8. They're not going
That's
to be out
probably
there
when people
in the
are
summer.
kids are gonna come in and go to bed.
Right.
Start the
o'clock.
move. Yeah.
When is the noise ordinance kick in? Do we have a noise ordinance?
You don't put it on kids though, because you'd buy citation books by the truckload and you'd be out of them within 2 days. Especially in our city, there's just so many kids out having a good time. So I wouldn't go to the noise ordinance thing because kids playing. Yeah.
What do we got?
I do have another thought that's not related to what we talked about, but
Are we through with the applicant?
yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
Some of the concerns that the people had, especially with like HOA and if there's ever any, damage to property or things like that, one of the easy ways to do that, I mean, she's already said that she has her liability insurance. One of the easy ways that, and I know a lot of HOAs require this, and again, I'm trying not to step in HOA stuff, but you can, you know, they can give an additional insured on their insurance to the homeowners association. And that way, if there ever is damage, they're additionally insured and the association is covered under her liability policy. I mean, it happens all the time. And it doesn't cost hardly anything to do.
But then again, though, I mean, that's something they need to work. That's something that they need to work out with.
No, I know. I'm just saying that's something that could easily remedy that. Is an additional insured could be given to the association.
I apologize. My name is Kelly Stevens again. I'm under the impression that even though she might have a regular homeowner's policy, she can take waivers to get around being the liability. Am I wrong?
It doesn't have anything to do with homeowners insurance. You're talking
No,
about
I mean,
workers'
a
compensation
rider
insurance.
or an umbrella to cover the home or the residence for a daycare.
Well, for a business, she'd have to have some kind of a
Yes, but
liability
isn't there
insurance.
a waiver that can be, I've been told that she could take a waiver out and get around that. Is that possible?
Now she's got a legitimate commercial business license. She has to have liability
I
insurance.
think she'd have to bond for it.
We're
She'd
not
have to have
the
so much money
insurance
in there.
police.
We're not. That's
Right?
that's
I
not
don't
our
know.
area of expertise.
Can she get around that?
I've never heard of that.
Oh, I thought you had mentioned that at one time.
No, I didn't talk about insurance at all.
I've never heard that with a business before.
Okay.
The only waivers that I'm aware of would be
I've
workers'
heard that you
compensation.
had spoke about that there was a way she could get around that. And I would hope that would not be the case.
No, you can go back and listen to the meeting too, we recorded, but I do not
No, it
recall
was-
at
and-
any
and
time
some-
saying anybody
something
could get
else.
around.
Someone else had mentioned that you had said that, so that's why I was bringing that up.
That
That
happens
you
to me
might
all the
have-
time, though. People say
Okay.
I say a lot of things.
Thank
that
you.
I don't, so.
There are three different kinds of insurance. Homeowners insurance doesn't cover any of this stuff. It just covers fire, flood, theft and vandalism of the person's home. This is liability insurance, which is
Well, the
her business
vandalism
activity
is, I think,
causes
the
issues.
vandalism, it sounds like, is what they're worried about. If something
Right.
happens, these kids hit their home, then this homeowner's insurance would have to kick in and do it, so.
But also but so would her liability insurance would cover that. The only thing there's a waiver for in the state is workers' compensation insurance, which if she had employees, et cetera. But
It'd be a battle between the two homeowner insurance companies.
but
I mean, it's fine if you want to make a condition that they show proof of insurance on the home. I think that's fine to do as well. I have no problem with you.
And liability.
and a liability insurance policy on the business.
However, you guys, if you're worried about that, I would definitely make that a condition.
I'm okay with that.
Take a motion. What do you
I'll
guys
try to do
think?
a motion.
You ready?
Yeah. This is Commissioner Tupo. I make a motion to recommend approval with conditions on item number C-22-03 for a conditional use permit for the daycare facility located at 1897 South Great Basin Drive with the 4 findings and the 6 conditions with a modification to number 2, where it says the daycare would be limited to operating hours. We want to limit indoor maximum 4 children between the hours of 8 and 10 p.m. And then also number 3 of the conditions, we're limiting to 8 children. And then
Anytime,
adding
yeah, any time of the day,
for any time of the day, correct.
up
And
till
then-
7,
Up
up
to
till
7.
8 o'clock.
I'm just going to write the maximum number of children will be no greater than 8 as outlined in the state adopted regulations, period.
Yes.
And all the rest of that stuff that you see in your condition 3, we're just striking.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, and then add a condition for a written lease agreement. Did we say we want it 2 years? 2-year term,
I'd say no greater than 2 years. How about
no
that?
greater than 2 years. And also adding an additional condition to obtain the approval and official approval from the homeowner. And adding another condition for proof of sufficient insurance on the home and the business.
liability insurance on the business and homeowners insurance on the home.
Liability insurance and homeowners insurance.
Just make sure those, Adrian, those are two completely separate things, just so you're aware.
And that's it on my list.
What were the hours again? I mean, did you have all 8 kids?
Yeah.
Until
gonna-
8?
He's gonna modify
Until
number
10?
Up to 8 until 8
7.
p.m.
8
and
p.m.
then up to
Okay.
4 from 8 till
Maximum of
10.
4 from
8 till 10.
Okay.
And they're indoor from
Indoor
8 to 10.
only.
They're all-
Four max, indoor.
From 8 to 10.
Yeah.
Written lease agreement, maximum 2-year term, proof of liability and homeowners insurance.
I like it. This is Commissioner Bullock, I'll second.
So I have a first by Commissioner Tupou and a second by Commissioner Bullock. Individual voting, Mitchell,
Aye.
Tupou,
Aye.
Bullock,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
I'm Shill, I'm on the fence. I'm actually going to vote nay. I think it's a kind of a unique subdivision for this, and I personally don't like the single ingress egress. So that's my vote, but it will pass. This does not go to city council. It will pass. Correct?
Correct.
Amen.
If the homeowners disagree with this, does it null and void this, or is that just wasting time? And if the kids can't come upstairs, where do they eat? If they can't come upstairs, how do they go outside? I don't get it. I don't get you guys. I don't get it at all.
Well, let me just say something about HOA and your CCNRs. If you're going to enforce this, make sure you enforce everything in your CCNRs. I'm just giving you a little guidance there that you cannot go gray on some things and black and white on others. You need to enforce all of your CCNRs. I think that's where you come in. We have nothing to do with CCNRs, so get with your CCNR board, and that's the direction that you need to take if you do not agree with what we just did.
And so if they don't have an exit out, go outside in the basement and that catches on fire, what do you do?
The fire department
will take
Fire
care of
department
that.
has to do an inspection. The fire department does an inspection.
They will have egress windows. It doesn't have to be a doorway, it just has to have an egress.
And the HOA can still levy fines against them.
We do
if they don't get
appreciate
approval.
y'all coming in. So, okay, onward and upward. We're going to go to item number 6A. This is for a conceptual design approval for the Iverson Minor subdivision located at approximately 178 West, 100 North. Applicant is American Heritage Homes, and we're going to turn some time over to Eldon for some review.
Thank you, Commissioners. The applicant is requesting conceptual design approval of the Iverson Minor subdivision. This parcel at one point was subdivided with the county recorder. However, they did not go through the city channels and getting approval through the city, which is why we're here tonight. The original parcel is located at 178 West, 100 North, and is 0.09 acres. The applicant is asking to split this parcel into 2.45 acre parcels. The current zoning at this location is R16, with the R16 to the northeast, south, and west. Staff has reviewed the requested proposal, and the proposed conceptual Iverson Minor subdivision conforms to the standards as set forth in the zoning regulations and subdivision ordinances of the city. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the conceptual design of the Iverson Minor subdivision based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions as seen in your staff report. And I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
I looked it up, and I mean, you've got your parcel lines there already drawn, but as I looked at ownership, one showed the 0.10 of an acre and the other showed a larger, so you're just aligning that to be the parcel lines, correct?
Correct, yeah, bringing it up to city standards.
Just to give a little history on this. This is one of those things we have the battles with the counties on. You two could agree to buy half of your lot if you had a big enough lot. You don't have to go, well, you do have to go through the city, but if you choose not to, you can go record it at the county. I tell the county, why do you take lot splits when the law in the state of Utah says you have to go through subdivision? But they claim because of the county laws are different than the municipality laws. There's two different laws in the state, by the way. It depends on where you live, and they claim that they are told by the state that they are to record anything that anybody brings in. I said, well, how do these people then, get caught? He says, well, you don't have to give them a building permit when they come in for it. And I said, well, thank you very much. Somebody spends the money and they buy a piece of land they think is legitimate from, Cody sells a piece of land. She thinks it's all up and up because it got recorded at the county. I've got the recording. But if you didn't go through the city about all the stuff, to make sure it met zoning, to make sure it had all the other things we check out in subdividing, we don't have to issue a building permit. And that's what the county says. You don't have to give them the building permit. And I said, well, what about the poor person, or the sucker in the case may be, gets sold a piece of land that they can't build on unless they have to now come back and go through all this and say there was a lot involved. Say the next sewer line was 500 feet down here, and now all of a sudden they don't know they have to put in 500 feet of sewer line to get over to their place, or water line, or power, or all these other things that subdividing covers. So this is just one of those ones that was done. We're not beating up the person who did. That's not here, but these are things that sometimes we have to come back and clean up because we can't give a building. I mean, we could, but we shouldn't. And that's what we said. We can't give you a building permit on this lot till we get it. Goes through our system, so. I just share that with you because I'm just using this as the example of things that we see often in our day-to-day, comings and goings at the city. And this is just one of those examples of why I've always tried to say the county should have a letter from every city before they record anything. And this is one of the examples I use, this and others that are just like it. They should not be recording anything unless a city has a letter of, either a plat or a letter saying, yeah, we've approved this 2-lot or 3-lot. Because you don't always need a Mylar plat for certain recordings. It's just, but should always have a letter from the city with the city stamp and authorization to record something, just because the person who's buying it doesn't always know that stuff. So sorry to take you off, but it's just a good time for sharing with you, information, education. So
they're passing us the dirty work.
We're cleaning it up.
That's work we were going to do either then or now, and that's why I say it's just get it done up front, or, so we don't have to come from behind, is the way. So, and again, I'm not trying to beat anybody up. This is just, I use this as an example of things that happen. Because again, sometimes even the property owner selling it doesn't know that, but you saw, always just check. So.
Any other comments or a motion?
This is Commissioner Anderson. I'll make a motion to approve the conceptual design for the Iverson Minor subdivision located at approximately 178 West, 100 North, with the 2 findings and 4 conditions, and send it to City Council for consideration.
It doesn't go to.
It doesn't go to, not these, the 2 lots don't. We made it, that's where we try to help keep things not having to go that way. So that's one of the ones.
Then I make a motion to approve the conceptual design approval for the Iverson Minor subdivision with the 2 findings and 4 conditions.
This is Commissioner Mitchell. I second that motion.
Yeah, I have a motion by Commissioner Anderson, a second by Commissioner Mitchell. Individual voting, Mitchell,
Aye.
Dupo,
Aye.
Bullock,
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Sheila's an aye also. That concludes our meeting for the night. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
This is Commissioner Tupou. I make a motion to adjourn.
This is Commissioner Bullock, I second.
Have a first and a second to adjourn this meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Aye.